It was the morning of August 25th, 2017. A big storm, Hurricane Harvey, was about to hit Texas. Crystal McDowell sent a quick message to her ex-husband asking if he had enough drinking water for the kids. Then, she got in her black Mercedes and drove toward his house. She had plans that day, showing a house, getting things done, but she never showed up. She never answered her phone, and she never came home. As the rain started to fall harder, Crystal seemed to disappear without a trace. It would take hidden cameras, a child's quiet secret, and a terrible discovery in the woods to finally reveal the truth. This is the real story of Crystal McDowell, and the moment everything changed. Crystal McDowell was born on October 26, 1979 in Baytown, Texas. Her early years were anything but easy. Raised by her parents, Pamela and Anthony, Crystal's childhood was marked by instability. Both struggled with addiction and were unable to provide a stable home. Tragically, by the age of 11, Crystal lost both parents to apparent overdoses within months of each other. Following their deaths, she was taken in by her grandmother and later also raised by her uncle Jeff Walters. Despite the hardships, Crystal was known for her radiant smile, striking blue eyes, and a personality that could light up any room. Driven, upbeat, and adventurous, Crystal became a flight attendant, a job that perfectly suited her spirit. For years she traveled the country, experiencing new places and people. At some point during her journey, Crystal met Stephen Wayne McDowell, a man 7 years her senior. Described as gentle and soft-spoken despite his imposing build, Stephen charmed Crystal. After dating for some time, they married in April 2007. Stephen had a daughter from a previous marriage. He worked as a shipping manager but struggled to maintain steady employment. As a result, Crystal became the primary provider. While she thrived in her career, Stephen remained professionally unstable, creating a noticeable imbalance in the relationship. The couple welcomed 2 children together. Outwardly, their home life seemed harmonious. But behind closed doors, tension grew, particularly around Crystal's frequent travel. Stephen reportedly became increasingly jealous, suspecting her of affairs during her flights, though there was no evidence of infidelity. Friends noted that Crystal cherished her family deeply and prioritized stability, especially given her difficult upbringing. In 2016, Crystal made a life-changing decision. After 15 successful years as a flight attendant, she left the skies behind and joined her family's real estate business. This allowed her to spend more time with her children and provided a sense of permanence. Her uncle Jeff, proud of her decision, welcomed her as part of the 3rd generation in their real estate legacy. Crystal excelled quickly in her new role. Her charm, professionalism, and dedication made her a rising star in the local housing market. However, privately, she confided in close friends that the career change also served a strategic purpose. She believed that being rooted locally would help her secure custody of her children if she and Stephen divorced. By February 2017, the marriage had reached a breaking point. Crystal filed for divorce, citing years of emotional strain. On March 20th, She called 911 to report that Stephen had made threats against her and their children. Authorities treated the situation as a precaution rather than a criminal matter. At that point, there were no custody agreements in place, meaning Stephen still had the legal right to be with his children. Officers tried to reach him, but their efforts were unsuccessful. A few days later, he returned the children, and Crystal decided not to press charges, choosing instead to focus on de-escalating tensions for the sake of their kids. Those close to Crystal say she was doing everything she could to ensure the divorce remained civil. Her goal was always the well-being of her children. Stephen's adult daughter was disturbed by the events and asked her father why he was acting out. He claimed to be enraged over alleged affairs Crystal had during their marriage, accusations that no one in her circle believed to be true. People familiar with the couple agreed the relationship had been toxic for years. Even Stephen's daughter admitted that while she and Crystal got along wonderfully, the marriage had always been volatile. Despite their differences, the divorce, finalized in June 2017, appeared amicable on the surface. In fact, Crystal helped Stephen find and purchase a new home while she worked on renovating her own. However, beneath the appearance of civility, deeper issues lingered. Crystal often asked her family not to mention her plans or outings to Stephen, fearing he would lash out. Even something as innocent as spending time with a friend could trigger him. Although legally divorced, Stephen seemed unable or unwilling to accept reality. His social media activity revealed a disturbing pattern. Shortly after the divorce, he changed his profile photo to an image of a tombstone, then to one of Santa Muerte, before switching back to a picture of him and Crystal. His posts painted the picture of a happy, intact family. Meanwhile, Crystal continued to support Stephen emotionally, checking in with him regularly. He assured her he was coming to terms with the separation and trying to get his life back on track. But his actions told a different story. One of Crystal's aunts noticed that Stephen frequently posted about bringing Crystal coffee in bed and pampering her, as if their relationship was still intact. In a final attempt to maintain a peaceful co-parenting relationship, Crystal planned a cruise with Stephen and the kids, but the closeness only blurred boundaries further. Then, in August 2017, something changed. Crystal, now 37, met Paul, a local jeweler and fellow single parent. Paul was charismatic, driven, and shared Crystal's love for travel and adventure. Their bond was instant, and for the first time in a long while, Crystal felt genuinely happy. Though she told her family about Paul, she asked them to keep it private until she found the right moment to share it with Stephen. Despite being legally divorced, she still feared his reaction. That fear didn't stop her from publicly expressing her joy. On August 23rd, she posted on social media that she had never been this happy and that her heart was full of a joy she never thought possible. "God is so good," she wrote. 2 days later, on August 25th, Hurricane Harvey loomed. Crystal woke up at Paul's house, preparing to face the storm and her responsibilities for the day. At 7:01 a.m., she texted Stephen to ask if he had stocked up on clean water for the kids and informed him she was heading to his house to shelter with them. She planned to visit a property afterward for a showing. Paul's security cameras captured the final known images of Crystal that morning, first in the kitchen, then walking outside in heels and holding her phone as she got into her black Mercedes-Benz. She was never seen again. Later that day, Crystal's uncle Jeff became concerned. They worked closely in the real estate business and spoke regularly. He tried calling her multiple times to inform her that the showing had been canceled due to the storm. When she didn't respond, Jeff reached out to Stephen, who replied with a suspicious text reportedly sent from Crystal's phone at 9:30 a.m. saying she planned to pick up the kids and head to Dallas. Jeff immediately grew suspicious. Crystal never changed plans without letting him know, and her phone was her lifeline. Work, appointments, everything was managed through it. Something didn't add up. Fearing the worst, he contacted the police to report her missing before noon that same day. On August 26th, as floodwaters from Hurricane Harvey swept through Houston, Jeff and two family members confronted Stephen. Stephen claimed Crystal hadn't been to his house for over a week, but his daughter told Jeff otherwise. She had hugged her mother the day before. That same day, a sheriff's deputy visited Stephen's home for a welfare check. When authorities entered Stephen McDowell's home, they found not only Crystal's black dress in the washing machine, but also her purse and handbag, clear signs she had recently been there. For her uncle Jeff, who had helped raise her, it was undeniable. Stephen was involved in her disappearance. But the timing couldn't have been worse. Hurricane Harvey had devastated the region. Many law enforcement officers, first responders, and even district officials were dealing with flooded homes and emergency rescues. As a result, the investigation stalled before it could even begin. Desperate for answers, Jeff turned to the media, hoping to raise awareness and generate leads. But his efforts were drowned out, literally, by round-the-clock storm coverage. With days passing and no progress, he hired a private investigator, frustrated by the silence from local authorities. This move sparked backlash. The local police chief and district attorney strongly objected to an outside investigator entering Crystal's home, arguing that critical evidence could be compromised or destroyed. Tensions between the McDowell family, law enforcement, and even local media in Houston escalated. Refusing to back down, Jeff and Crystal's new partner, Paul, teamed up to raise a $15,000 reward for any credible information. They launched a social media campaign that finally drew public attention. But in the eyes of investigators, suspicion fell not only on Stephen, but also on Jeff and Paul. Despite Jeff's relentless search for Crystal, law enforcement treated him with skepticism. Whispers about his private life, namely his same-sex relationships, circulated in the conservative town of Baytown. Some believed those biases colored the way authorities viewed his involvement. The local police commander even dismissed Jeff's concerns in a national broadcast, calling him overly emotional and an obstacle to the case. Paul Hargrave wasn't spared either. After submitting to a polygraph with inconclusive results, his credibility was questioned. He worsened things in the investigators' eyes by sending surveillance footage from his home to news stations instead of turning it over directly to law enforcement. Paul defended his actions, saying he tried to provide the videos to the sheriff's office but felt ignored, so he took his case to the public to clear his name. And then there was Stephen. Despite his emotionally manipulative behavior, threatening self-harm if Crystal ever left him, he was seen by investigators as polite, helpful, and cooperative. While family and friends described the marriage as deeply unhealthy and marked by control, authorities didn't view Stephen as a potential threat or a man seeking revenge over the divorce. That all began to change on Tuesday, August 29th. As the floodwaters receded, a family friend spotted Crystal's black Mercedes-Benz parked outside a rundown motel, an area flagged during the online campaign. The car doors were unlocked, and the keys sat in the console. Investigators believed it had been staged for theft, but due to the storm's impact, the flooded lot had made the car inaccessible. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses showed Crystal's car entering the motel lot at 6:37 a.m. on August 26, the day she vanished. Just 5 hours later, Stephen was seen on camera at a nearby gas station. He didn't buy gas. Instead, he drove toward the motel, seemingly checking to see if the car remained untouched. Even more chilling, other surveillance captured a hooded figure, matching Stephen's build, riding a bicycle through the rain near the motel that same morning. The clues were adding up, and for the first time, all eyes turned to Stephen, not as a grieving ex-husband, but as a potential suspect in a case that had stayed quiet for far too long. The investigation took a dramatic turn when surveillance footage from a Walmart located just across the highway from the motel where Crystal's car was found showed a man resembling Stephen McDowell purchasing a bicycle early on the morning of August 26, 2017. He paid in cash, and the timing aligned perfectly with the sighting of a hooded figure on a bike near the scene. Despite this damning evidence, Stephen denied any involvement in Crystal's disappearance. Authorities, citing a lack of direct proof, allowed him to return home with his children. Crystal's family was outraged. Jeff, her uncle, reminded the district attorney that Crystal had previously filed a report stating Stephen had threatened to harm their children if she ever left him. To Jeff, the man's mental and emotional instability was undeniable. It wasn't until September 8th, nearly 2 weeks after she vanished, that the district attorney finally intervened. The children were placed in protective custody, and Stephen was brought in for questioning. Yet even then, Stephen dictated the terms. He asked to return home for one final night, to put things in order, and promised to confess the next morning. Jeff and other loved ones were furious. They believed this unsupervised time could give Stephen an opportunity to take his own life and escape justice. But on September 9th, 2017, Stephen kept his word. He returned to the station and confessed. He told investigators that during a heated argument, Crystal informed him she was taking her new boyfriend, Paul, on an upcoming family trip, and not him. She had just returned from spending time with Paul, which enraged Stephen. As their children slept upstairs, he attacked her from behind and strangled her to death. After the murder, Stephen wrapped her body in a blanket, placed it in the trunk of his car, and before sunrise, drove to a wooded area near his home where he disposed of her remains. Even with the confession, Stephen refused to disclose the location of the body unless prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. Given the damage caused by Hurricane Harvey and the time that had passed, authorities feared the body would be impossible to locate without his help. They agreed to the deal. Later that day, Stephen led authorities to a remote, overgrown area. Crystal's remains were found in an advanced state of decomposition. Stephen McDowell, then 44, was charged with first-degree murder. Bail was set at $500,000, which he was unable to pay. Beyond the jealousy and rage, the case revealed a more sobering truth. Without Crystal, Stephen had no means of financial support for himself or his children. Justice, however, moved slowly. The trial didn't begin until June 2019. During that time, Stephen showed no remorse. In court, he attempted to portray himself as a broken man, claiming he acted in a sudden fit of passion, a legal strategy in Texas that, if accepted, could drastically reduce his sentence. He even alleged that Crystal's death resulted from a consensual encounter gone wrong. But the prosecution dismantled this narrative, emphasizing the long-standing emotional abuse and control he had exerted throughout their relationship. Stephen's legal team tried to smear Crystal's reputation, introducing unverified texts and claims of infidelity. But those closest to her stood firm. They painted a very different picture. Crystal was vibrant, caring, and deeply committed to her children. They testified about the dysfunction and manipulation she endured for years. One of the most heartbreaking moments during the trial came when Mandy Avalos, Crystal's lifelong friend and guardian of her children, took the stand and shared something devastating. In December 2017, Maui, then just 5 years old, confided in Mandy that she was ready to reveal her secret. Mandy had no idea what to expect. Gently encouraging the girl to speak, she listened in shock as Maui described waking up the morning her mother vanished. She recalled hearing her parents fighting. She wandered past the bathroom and into the bedroom. There, she saw Stephen push Crystal onto the bed and place his hands over her nose and mouth. Maui stood at the edge of the bed as her mother looked at her, until her eyes stopped moving. Then Stephen turned to his daughter, told her to go upstairs, and warned her never to speak about what she saw. Mandy immediately alerted authorities. Maui was placed into trauma counseling, but the emotional wounds ran deep. Another key witness for the prosecution was Melissa Cherry, Crystal's cousin and close friend. She recalled helping Crystal move out of the home when tensions with Stephen became unbearable, and then helping her move back in when Stephen threatened to end his life if she didn't return. Cherry testified that after the divorce, Stephen continued to manipulate Crystal emotionally, even starving himself to make her feel responsible for his well-being. The day after Crystal went missing, Melissa and Jeff visited Stephen's home. He was pacing nervously, trembling, and crying. Maui told them she had seen her mom the day before, then pointed to a black dress in a closet and said, "The bad spirits took her." The scene was chilling. Melissa and Jeff immediately called the police from outside the home, begging them to remove Stephen from the children's lives, but their pleas were ignored. Melissa also testified about the family cruise Stephen had proposed, a last-ditch effort to stage a peaceful goodbye. Crystal reluctantly agreed, but made it clear, no threats, no manipulation, no harm. As the trip neared, another argument, this time over money, convinced her to cancel. She realized Stephen wasn't trying to say goodbye. He wanted to win her back. Then came one of the most damning testimonies. An inmate who had shared a cell with Stephen revealed that Stephen had confessed in detail to killing Crystal. The motive? A text message from another man. The inmate recalled Stephen saying he used zip ties to bind Crystal's hands after she died, a detail only the forensic team had previously confirmed. Texas Department of Public Safety officials confirmed other pieces of Stephen's confession. He told them Crystal had arrived early on the morning of August 25, 2017. They fought. She told him she never truly loved him and that he needed to move on. In a rage, he strangled her in the bedroom. The 5-day trial ended swiftly. In just 3.5 hours, the jury found Stephen McDowell guilty of first-degree murder. On September 10, 2019, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He must serve at least 25 before being eligible for parole, making his potential release date 2042. Crystal's family was devastated by what they saw as a lenient sentence. Her uncle Jeff shouted in court that Stephen deserved worse. Others were frustrated, believing a life sentence or the death penalty should have been on the table. But those options had been taken off due to the deal Stephen struck in exchange for revealing where he had hidden Crystal's body. The family's biggest concern, however, wasn't the length of the sentence. It was the emotional toll on the children. Despite being surrounded by love, Maui and Madden had suffered an unimaginable loss. Crystal had always centered her life around them, and now they were left navigating trauma most adults couldn't bear. By 2020, Mandy Avalos, who had taken in the children immediately after Crystal's murder, was taking steps to adopt them legally. Some sources describe Mandy as Crystal's childhood best friend, while others claimed they had once been romantic partners. Regardless of their past, Mandy remained Crystal's most trusted person, and her devotion to the children was unwavering. Now that you've heard the full story, we want to know your thoughts. Do you think Stephen McDowell received the justice he deserved? Share your opinion in the comments. We're reading them all. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.